People that have woken up in bed with a stranger. What's your story? Not really woke up with a stranger. But I did wake up on a stranger's couch once. Looked around and sat up to see a woman staring at me. I was startled and realized I had no idea who this woman was. Then realized I was only in my underwear, so I half covered up, and she asked who I was. I said my name and asked where Jill was, the girl I thought I went to see. She looked confused for a second before bursting out laughing. Turns out Jill's neighbor didn't lock her door, and I was obviously very drunk. I ended up making a sandwich and drinking half a carton of orange juice before hitting the couch. Thank God she was so nice. Skylar, if you're reading this, thank you for not calling the cops. Haha. How about the opposite? I was out drinking with this girl and her friends I had just met. Ended up going back to their hotel room and hooking up. Fell asleep around 3 AM. Woke up around 5 AM with a bad hangover and completely alone. Somewhere between 3 and 5 the girl and her friends packed their shit and checked out of the hotel while I was asleep. Away at college. Went to a bar, met a girl. I woke up the next morning in an on-campus apartment sharing a recliner with said girl. Neither of us lived on campus or knew who lived in the apartment we ended up at. I woke up with an eye patch on. It was November 1st and I managed to pick up a cute woman who dressed up as a pirate. I was so blackout, I charmed myself into being with someone way out of my league. She would later tell me I couldn't get my dick up, making her regret her decision. Alcohol gives, alcohol takes away. Not me, but a neighbor was a member of a fraternity and they all went downtown and got completely wasted. He doesn't remember how he got separated from his buddies, but woke up in a very soft bed not knowing where he was. He saw a large fluffy flowered bathrobe on the back of the door and put it on. He heard some voices and walked towards them. He walked into the dining room and there was an all-black family smiling in relief at him. My neighbor was a southern white guy. They were all eating breakfast and the father pulled out a chair right beside him and made him a heaping plate of scrambled eggs, grits, toast and bacon. My neighbor had left the bar in a drunken state and had come upon their car and passed out in their backseat. Thankfully, all ended up okay. He kept in touch with that family for a long time afterwards. Got really drunk in Vegas. Some girl with her friends insisted on going up to my room. I kept telling her she didn't have to, but she kept saying, let's go, let's go. We kissed twice, then she immediately passed out in my bed, so I did the same, with all of our clothes on. I woke up a few hours later, still in a half-drunk state having completely forgotten about her. Looked over and my brain was like WTF. Where am I? I quickly remembered and went back to sleep. Woke up a few hours later and she was gone. Lol, oh god, wish this hasn't happened as often as it has. As a tiny female, I'm lucky to be alive. One specifically stands out. I was out drinking with my dad. He was in town visiting uncle and my brothers. Across from our table are these two guys visiting from Tennessee. At some point my uncle starts chatting with them and invites them to join our table. One is very Matthew McConaughey-like, so naturally I'm trying to be subtlety flirtatious. I drank a lot that night, to the point that I'm pretty spotty on leaving the bar. Or even the fact that my family just let me leave with these two random guys. I woke up in their hotel room. Turns out it was 7 guys sharing the room. And I had the entire bed to myself. They even put the comforter over me, while a couple had the other bed and the rest slept on the floor. One of the dudes even went and got breakfast for us all, including me. They tried to convince me to go to the Fish concert that they were in town for, but I had to work. Open bracket. Well, I did, but not in the way that you'd think. So basically I went to sleep in my friend's bed because he got on the sofa and I woke up with a girl next to me. We didn't do anything the night before because multiple people have reported that they saw her coming into the room and just laying down next to me telling them that I was her boyfriend, which I wasn't, and then going to sleep. She may have confused me for her boyfriend, and when I woke up I just snuck out and went home. The stranger wasn't in my bed. He was standing beside it looking down at me. He had not been in my apartment when I went to bed. He had broken in and apparently spent quite a bit of time in there before entering my bedroom. He'd broken in through one door and created an exit for himself that took him past the door he'd entered through and out through our other, almost never used, door. I chased him out, but lost him in the alley behind my building. The police believed that my reaction saved me from a sexual assault and possibly from abduction. Unfortunately, they never caught the guy. Probably not what you imagined. As a kid, I would sleepwalk at night. In the morning, I would have no recollection of what happened. I spent the night at a friend's house when I was about 10, and the family had a fire going in the fireplace in their living room. My friend's mom decided to sleep on the couch to make sure the fire went out, and the dad went to sleep in the parents' bedroom. Due to the door to their bedroom always being closed, I had never been inside, which was very disorienting the next morning when I awoke in said bedroom, as the dad was just waking up and getting out of his bed. He had assumed during the night I was his son and didn't question anything when I slipped into bed with him. Kudos to dad for not making it any more awkward than it already was. And that's the story of how I awoke next to my friend's dad. Woke up, didn't remember his name, pretend to ask for his messenger so that I could get his name again. Next month will be our 4th anniversary. One time at my cousin's house party I was absolutely out of social energy and went to a room to go to sleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night with 2 of the most jacked dudes I've ever seen curled up together next to me and a unit of a bulldog sleeping in between me and the dudes. One of the guys saw me wake up and he asked if it was cool to sleep there, and I said that I didn't mind, but he should let me have some of the blanket because it was fucking freezing. He said no problem bro, and then tucked me in like some mother hen and then said, good night bro. Shit was the most strange / wholesome thing I've ever experienced. Dunno, can barely remember flashes of the nightclub, dancing with some girl, and then waking up in my hotel room with her next to me fully nude and my buddy fast asleep in his bed. I don't actually remember getting laid. She wasn't a hooker, I still had all my cash the next morning. Vegas, man. Not a bed, but kind of an abandoned trailer in the middle of the desert. Found shelter, slept in it, woke up there was another person in there. They didn't know I was in there either. When I stood up and looked around they were staring at me all wide-eyed and clearly freaked out. I didn't know what to do and we just looked at each other for a little bit. I don't know what to say, so I offered her some corn nuts. We both laughed at that and then we shortly left without asking any questions. That's the closest I ever got to a one-night stand. I was taking a train from Munich to Venice. It was one of those trains that the little rooms have chairs that pull out into beds. A older Italian gentleman came in the room, and as the train took off he made the sleep hand gesture. So I crashed out with this old dude. I woke up to him tapping me letting me know we will be in Venice after the next stop. I was around 19 years old and at a weekend festival where most people camped out in tents. I got hammered and blacked out on Saturday and woke up on an air mattress in somebody else's tent. I sat up to get my bearings at some point in the morning and a couple was also in the tent, but not laying on the air mattress. The guy sat up right after me and said, buddy, I don't know who you are, but you better get the fuck out of here. I didn't stick around to ask any questions. Not as raunchy as some of the stories, but a friend of mine in college woke up in some random girl's bed that she didn't know. She was so drunk that she thought it was her dorm room and the door was open, so she got in the bed and slept. When she woke up there was a note next to her that said something like, hey, I don't know who you are, but you were really asleep last night. Don't worry, it's cool if you crash here. I was going to spend the night at my boyfriend's. Just please make sure you close the door when you leave. P.S. I left you a glass of water on the nightstand. Apparently that girl came back to her room and found my friend passed out on her bed. She decided to be really nice and let her sleep it off. I woke up to the sound of rain hitting the tent I was in, not my tent, and the random guy next to me saying, oh fuck, my unicycle. When I was 11 I went to my friend's place for a horror movie sleepover night. I woke up with a 4-year-old boy who turned out to be her little brother, clinging to all my blankets in fear. He had eavesdropped on our sleepover after pretending to go to bed early and was now convinced a killer doll would murder him in his sleep. Their mom made us all hot chocolate and then he slept in her bed all night. Not woke up with one, but came home from primary school around 11 years of age to find a complete stranger in my bed. Being completely naive thinking he was a family friend, I made us both sandwiches to give to him. I returned to my room to find him gone. I now look back at this with complete horror. My family finds it amusing that it took me years to tell my family about it. While still living at my parents' house, woke up after a club night. It was still a bit dark, but I saw someone next to me in my bed. Spent 15 minutes trying to figure who this was before I decided to take a look. Turns out it were my extra blankets I used to fill up the space between bed and wall. Decided I needed a lot more sleep before going out of bed. I know a guy who went home with a stranger. Went pee in the middle of the night naked. Went back to bed. Woke up to screaming. He had gone back to the wrong room and was naked in her mother's bed. I used to date this really shitty guy. We lived together for 5 years and in that time some hella dicey shit happened. But this one makes the top 5. It was a Sunday night, around 2 AM. I was asleep in bed when I'm woken by that feeling of someone staring at me. Assuming it's my then boyfriend I tell him I'm trying to sleep and don't want to have sex. Then I hear a laugh I'd never heard before. I fly out of bed and there's this guy sitting on the edge of my bed laughing his ass off. I ask who he is. He says, "I'm Andrew, boyfriend's buddy." Then he tells me how my ex told him I was a prude and would be mad if he came in our bed, but he didn't believe my ex cause boyfriend was so cool. Why would he date a boring girl? Then he asked if I wanted some coke. I walked out and told my ex to get rid of him and let me sleep since I worked in the morning. His reply, "Well, now that you're up, can you take us to McDonald's?" Thanks for watching and share your stories. Don't forget to consider the idea to maybe think about potentially subscribing. Peace.